Welcome to the Willy Bragg Show. Momentarily, let me get there. Welcome back to the Willy Bragg Show. I hope everything is well with y'all. An explanation for this evening, and an explanation for yesterday. Yesterday, I had a plan to live stream, and I was having trouble. With the camera, and it turned out to be. I did not know for the longest time what happened, and it was something that was so simple that that it is. I can laugh about it now, and I was very angry last night, and I got that little glitch taken care of. So. Everything should be relatively smooth operating. Now, I'm a few minutes late today because work graveyard shift. I went out to dinner. I was a little bit sleepy, so I parked somewhere to take a quick power snooze, and henceforth why I was a few minutes late. So that explains that. And I'm still kind of tired, but I'm gonna do this live stream. So there you have it. all explained away. Let's see who do we have here. We have Earl and Laurel. Hey, Willy. Hey, Earl. We also have Miguel. How are you doing? Let's see. We also have Daniel Berry Sports highlight. I hope everybody's well. So let's get started underway. In 2016, it always comes back to that election. Back in 2016, obviously Donald Trump won, and he became the 45th president of the United States. And in 2020, he was obviously defeated. He was obviously defeated, and he came back in November. And so when you compare the presidency of Donald Trump at 45 versus the current 47, there's a lot to be said. In 2016, when he ran, and I really believe this right down to my very core, is that he was basically convinced to run. I think the Clintons thought that they could win, and they thought that Donald Trump would make it easier for that win to take place. And I think that made all the sense in the world. And so I think he was meant to be a disruptor in the Republican primaries. And he was for sure that, and it's in an entertaining sort of way. He ran, and people were thinking he was so far to the right in 2016, when he actually embraced some positions that were almost moderate, and in some cases even to the left of Hillary Clinton. This is not to say that Donald Trump was a leftist or what have you, but he was using themes of populism, protectionism, to protect American jobs, that sort of thing. This is not an endorsement of Trump, by the way. I'm just saying that this was sort of the things that he outlined as a way to win. That he was going to be for the people, supposedly, and take on the elites. When he was 2016, people went batshit crazy. And I would say that the term Trump derangement syndrome between 2017, when he got sworn in, and prior to January 6th was a justified term, because while there was a lot of policies he had that I disagree with, many policies he had I disagree with, they were not really all that different from a lot of typical Republicans that were serving in the presidency. But then again, I think that Republicans, as a general rule, even prior to Donald Trump, were extreme. And that in itself, made his presidency on those terms unacceptable. In certain areas, he ended up pleasing a reluctant conservative base. You got to remember that when Donald Trump, there was a time some people on the right thought that Donald Trump was not a real conservative. They didn't trust him. This is why he chose Mike Pence to be his running mate in 2016. He needed to ensure evangelicals, social conservatives, the neoconservative war hawk establishment, those types of people, that he was thoroughly conservative down to the core. He he was able to get some. He was able to stack the courts with some of his own people that he appointed, which is funny because some members of the Supreme Court didn't vote 100% the way the MAGA people wanted them to vote. Everybody's like getting all upset, and they're wanting. Some people even talking about eliminating the Supreme Court, like, for example, Jesse Kelly. They're wanting a dictatorship. And so you have that situation. When Trump was defeated in 2020, and I know why he was defeated in 2020. COVID was the reason why he was defeated in 2020. There was no literal successful attempts to steal the election from Donald Trump. And so that's such an entitlement mentality on the right. Things don't go your way, you go and throw a hissy fit. The things that they accuse people on the left of doing. And so you had this diet coup called the January 6th insurrection. Now, on one hand, I'm not your typical shitlib that goes and act like the sky is falling because of January 6th. In fact, it was kind of funny. But on the other hand, they were insurrectionists. And they didn't like the way the election turned out, so they decided to have a hissy fit, and in their own retarded way, they thought they could go and take over the country, which I think in 2021 it wouldn't have worked, because whether they were just trying to disrupt a certain procedure or whether they were trying to take over the country, then I don't think the U.S. military would have had it, and we would have been under some kind of martial law until new elections were to take place, and Donald Trump would have been placed under arrest, and that's what would have happened, in my view. What the Democrats failed doing, and I don't know, they felt like they had the votes. I personally think that even if they 100% had the votes to do this and could convince some moderate Republicans to go along with them to enact the 25th Amendment, which means that you deem the president as mentally incompetent and not fit for office and won't be allowed to run for office again. That would have been a whole lot better than all the attempts to have one charge after the other. A lot of it he's guilty of. Some of it maybe questionably not. But it looked like a witch hunt. And they managed to make a victim out of Donald Trump. Makes me mad because there's nothing about a billionaire that should be pitied. The Heritage Foundation and a lot of other right-wing think tanks got together and created a shadow government during the Biden presidency that was in the waiting when Trump was to come in. And they would have everything set up where Trump would pretty much rule just about by decree. And looks like a lot of it's coming according to plan. And we're on the cusp of a dictatorship, and that's not hyperbole. When you round up people and you're taking them to prisons in places possibly worse than Guantanamo, that in itself indicates that we're on a path of authoritarianism. Not that I consider my program all that important in the grand scheme of things politically in this country. But I have said enough about various issues, and I have said enough in criticisms of Donald Trump over the past 5 years that could, at best, shut the channel down, and I don't have a voice. At worst, I could be considered subversive and sent to prison. We're headed in that direction. So much so that I thought, should I continue doing the Willy Bragg show? But I was thinking at the same time, am I going to let a human-sized, obese orange intimidate me into being subjugated toward his will? And my answer is hell no. My answer is hell no. I would say that Donald Trump went from fake populist to fascist. It's not hyperbole. It's not it's not hyperbole at all. This guy, Donald Trump, is basically America's Protestant Pinochet. He is Duarte, who ruled the Philippines. He is Jair Bolsonaro of Brazil. He is Nayib Bukele of El Salvador. He is Benjamin Netanyahu of Israel. He is Viktor Orban of Hungary. And although they don't get along, he is Volodymyr Zelensky of the Ukraine. He's all these things. He's Marine Le Pen of France, who's not president, thankfully. He's all these things. I wouldn't compare him to Hitler. I would compare him to Mussolini. I would compare him to Franco, Salazar. I'll compare him to some of these people. Authoritarian, fascistic. That's where I view Donald Trump. Now, the meme here says old, unfit, and cruel. Now, I don't give a fuck about the old part. I don't give a fuck about the old part. People's like, well, there should be age limits to who can run for office or whatever. No, I don't. I don't give a shit about your age. I give a shit on how cruel somebody is. And he's incredibly cruel. Now, I think that there's a little bit of vengeance that's involved because, all the people that kind of went after him between the presidencies. Again, this could have been resolved if we would have done the 25th Amendment and had him being forbidden to run for office again. That's a hell of a lot better than taking away his Twitter account. That's a whole lot better than just... and they didn't do the 25th Amendment. And I know why. Partly, it's because, Donald Trump is a cash cow for the media. They need him around. It's a cash cow for the Democratic establishment. Nancy Pelosi, Hakeem Jeffries, Chuck Schumer. They need a boogeyman. They need a villain. So they got Donald Trump, and now they also have Elon Musk along with Donald Trump. That plays the perfect part of being the villain to raise money. When Roe versus Wade was overturned in 2022, I bet you that the Democratic establishment were almost happy about it. Because, whatever we may think of Bernie Sanders and whatever we may think of AOC today, and we are disappointed with them, we think that this anti-oligarchy tour that he is on with AOC. It's all virtue signals, theatrics. It's smoke and mirrors. I'm not going to say it's useless because if you're really raising awareness and trying to create class consciousness on issues like income equality or what have you, that is fine. I agree with Ron Placone. When the Workers' Strike Back Conference was taking place last month, I believe it was last month, or the months before, earlier this year. And Bernie Sanders at the same time was in Omaha, Nebraska, meeting with union people and that sort of thing. They were kind of doing both the same thing in terms of what the conference was all about. Now, I used to write it off that when people say, well, Bernie Sanders just sheepdog people into the Democratic Party. I used to write that off, and I still think in the past it wasn't true, but I do think it might be kind of true today. But I'm with Ron Placone when he said that why not support Workers' Strike Back Conference of Kashama Sawant and support, the good work that actually is being done with this anti-oligarchy tour that Bernie Sanders is on. I'm not going to say it doesn't have a positive purpose, a net positive gain out of this. I just can discern and tell you where I think he's doing good currently and where he's somebody not to be trusted. I'm referring to Bernie Sanders again. And everything they're saying about Donald Trump in this anti-oligarchy tour is correct. But the problem is we've been over and over through this. That you go and work within the Democratic Party or vote harder, quote unquote, and just get those numbers up. That the Democrats will rediscover their roots and become New Deal liberals again. No such a thing has happened. Look what happened when Joe Biden became president. Biden promised a public option. He barely touched the Obamacare. Build Back Better was supposed to do a lot of things to repair a lot of damage and actually even in its original form, while it was not perfect, it was probably the most bold plan since FDR's New Deal, LBJ's Great Society. And, you had corporate Democrats to destroy it. And Kirsten Sinema of Arizona and Joe Manchin of West Virginia. And they're both out. They're no longer U.S. senators. And now you got John Bolton. What's his name? John Fetterman. Might as well be John Bolton at this point. You have John Fetterman, who was running a Bernie adjacent campaign in 2022 and decided that he was going to be just like a Joe Manchin type now and to be like a Kirsten Sinema type. I mean, I can't even stand the sight of John Fetterman anymore. I used to say John Fetterman, if he wants to sit there and wear a jersey and basketball shorts into the U.S. Senate chamber, who am I to judge? But now that he wants to go and be a piece of shit asshole that punches left, I'll be like, motherfucker, go and put on a fucking suit like everybody else. So the thing about it is that the Democrats are going to do what they always do and try to get everybody all psyched up to come back into the Democratic Party fold. And it's just not going to work. I've seen it too many times. And you could say all you want. One more time. Let's just try this one more time. Insanity is repeating the same shit over and over and expecting a different result. I don't know what to do. We got 45 that was more moderate in some ways than we thought he was going to be, but he was conservative enough to lure some 2016 never Trumper types into his camp. And now this guy is governing in ways that we all fear Jesse Helms would be if Jesse Helms were to run for president when he was alive and actually win an election. He is the Pat Buchanan that we feared. So we went from fake populists to 21st century fascism with Donald Trump. My advice when it comes to Donald Trump is to oppose him, not do what he says or his syncopated people under him. That's where I stand. Anyway, I just wanted I wanted to talk about that, because when you compare Donald Trump in 2016 and Donald Trump in 2024, what's the difference? And I think that maybe there was probably some explanations for the moderation of Trump in 2016 that doesn't exist today. I don't trust establishment Republicans running the show any more than I do Trump. They differ, but the Republicans in general, whether you're MAGA Republican or whether you're the more George W. Bush, John McCain style Republican, both types in the party are garbage. They're dangerous to govern. But what happened in 2016 during from 2017 to 2021 was that you had your establishment Republicans, never Trumper types, trying to undermine Trump. You had MAGAs trying to undermine the never Trumpers. And I think that it was sort of like water and oil mixing. It created a little bit of chaos where the damage was not fully done. I don't want to go back to a Republican-style government in the vision of George W. Bush and Dick Cheney. And it irks me that you have liberals and progressives today that sit there and act like, oh, yeah, Donald Trump, he's one of us now. I mean, George W. Bush, I meant to say, he's one of us now. Dick and Liz Cheney, they're one of us now. John Bolton, one of us now. Speak for your fucking self. Because the fascism that we have today, that Trump has no problem enacting, has roots going back to 2001 after 9/11. And what I mean is that what was put in place, the Patriot Act, and Obama's NDAA in 2012, National Defense Authorization Act, this sort of thing, that we are a garrison state where we're being constantly surveillance nonstop, and where you're having people picked off the streets and arrested for political reasons, arrested just for being a certain demographic, and racially profiling at that point. I don't want that. I don't want either vision of the Republican Party governing this country. Democrats, I don't want to look back at a bygone era and think Bill Clinton was the best we could do. When Bill Clinton's, a lot of his policies were just a softer version of what Reagan and Bush were doing between 1981 in 1993. So I don't want that vision either. I want something different. And I want something where we can win. And, right now, no, there's not much to say to brag about right in this moment because of the situation with with Trump, the Republicans in Congress, and most of the time the Supreme Court. Although the Supreme Court can surprise you occasionally. So that's where we're at. So, anyway, I just wanted to discuss this and see how y'all are feeling in that regard. So let's go back to the chats here, and I'm going to, I'll probably call it a night. Let's see here. We have Desert Mantis. How are you doing today? We have Warren. How you doing, buddy? As you can see, I'm back. Looking forward to seeing Morning Extra on Friday and The Secret Show on Saturday. Desert Mantis said, the siren went off in my town. I thought it was a tornado or earthquake, but it turned out to be a newly Willy Bragg live stream. Yes, I'm back. Adam Moose. Morning, Willy Bragg show. Yeah, I guess it is morning across the pond there. Let's see. We have Chuck's Intergalactic UFO show. Incidentally, the sky is falling. Yes, Chuck. Let's talk. Email me on Twitter. Let's talk. We'll love to have you as a guest on the Willy Bragg show. Okay, we have here Trump is not mentally incompetent. He's just a lousy president. Biden is mentally incompetent and a lousy president and senator. Oh, I will argue that both Trump and Biden were incompetent, is incompetent. Trump is incompetent currently. Biden was incompetent. And they were both lousy presidents. There is that. I like that shirt. Oh, thanks. Yeah. Believe it or not, I've had this shirt since 1989. Bernie isn't raising awareness or creating class consciousness. He's twisting perceptions and lowering standards, says Earl Lurl. I think, okay, when I say raising awareness, I think what we want, but at the same time, he's settling for being a sheep herder. Even in my most sycophantic Bernie bro days, when Bernie Sanders, back in the 1990s and the 2000s and prior to 2016, when he'll be endorsing the Democratic candidate for president, urge people on the left to do the same thing. My Bernie or bust ass was like, nah, Bernie, we part on this issue. I would never, ever vote for anybody in the two-party system for president. And at this point, I don't know if I'll ever vote again. I agree. Trump is out of control. The whole kidnapping and trafficking thing is pretty bad. I say it's an impeachable offense. And I still say enact the 25th Amendment. If the Democrats had any balls and the Republicans had any balls to stand up against the MAGA fascism, I say enact the 25th Amendment. Yo, good to see you too. Yes, thank you. Inside Government Podcast says, do you think there will be a 2026 and 2028 election? That's a very good question. That is a very good question. If I suppose there will be something that you could call an election, and I don't know how it would depart from the status quo. I see Bernie as a wolf in sheep clothing, and I'm starting to see that too, by the way. Control opposition. He's there to keep the left in line while neoliberals run things. I'm about 99% in agreement at this point. That's progress from where I used to be on that question. Anyway, I'm glad to be back. And as I said, I'm sorry I was running a little late. I'll try to do better. And anyway, and I need to get a little bit more rest. But I would like to say that if you like what you heard, please press like. It helps with the algorithms. Comment and share this video. Actually, you can come on my channel and share whatever contents you like. Feel free to share the content. As a First Amendment absolutist, it's my duty to inform you to create your own platform and utilize it, because we are, in fact, the muckrakers of our time. To go ahead and subscribe to the Willy Bragg Show on YouTube and all my other platforms, and to reject corporate media. I would say free Ed Snowden, free Palestine, free healthcare for all, fight like hell to preserve free speech. And until next time, fuck MAGA. Y'all take care. I will see y'all soon.